Hey, there he is. How you
Hello.
doing?
I'm doing well enough.
Oh, Siri just came up and started talking to me. Sorry, what was that?
Nothing. I'm doing well enough. Is there water over my phone?
Cool. You didn't have to work tonight?
Nope. Works Friday. Works on
Oh,
Friday.
cool. Cool. Oh, so do you just work on the weekends?
Generally, so far right now.
Nice. Fair. So tell me again, you published which chapters did you publish?
One prologue through three, and I'm almost done chapter four.
Oh, cool. So it sounds like you just want to get them up, kind of see what the response to them kind of is.
I got 3.5 stars, so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, good.
Yeah, for this point,
Um,
we're going more into the speed running section.
like you mean just in terms of getting them out kind of thing?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. Well, so what would be the best way for me to help you? Because probably that means we won't be able to kind of dig in and get them up to stuff. You largely just kind of want me to just kind of go through them and make sure there's no major glaring stuff and just get it up there.
Um. Yeah. For the most part, like what we did at the graveyard was really great from a completely narrative perspective, but it wasn't great in terms of meeting a deadline. So
So yeah, no. So it sounds like the deadlines are more important than making sure like the writing is the best it can be. You're more in, and I mean that seriously. You would rather get decent stuff published as soon as possible rather than get it like airtight.
yeah, like the problem we've had so far is basically we keep going back and we go over something that I've already done, and
Hmm.
that's fine from a certain perspective, but from another perspective, I'd rather have 100 crappy stories out in my name than one really good one that because we both know I'm not going to be Stephen King. No one's going to pick up something I make and say, "Oh yeah, this guy's the next Stephen King."
Well, I think they're definitely not going to say that if you rush stuff and publish it. I think you could definitely be that. I think you're that. I do believe you're that good, but that takes time. So if you don't have time, then my suggestion would be, yeah, let's just I can just go through and make sure there's no major glaring errors and check for like
Mm.
things like spelling or just sentence structure, and you can just get it
Yeah,
out there. Yeah, if you want to do that.
I can handle the grammar with Grammarly. This is more like story structure, making sure things sound okay, that type of stuff. But basically, we're going to be doing the same thing we've always done, except we're probably not going to go do like more than one or two passes on any one object.
Okay, that'll be happy to do that. I'll just full disclosure. I think that'll be a challenge. If I won't really know how to. It's basic. It sort of feels, and I totally get it. It sort of feels like the equivalent of someone saying, "Hey, I need you to teach me how to drive because I have my exam next week. So don't worry about left turns and right turns. Can you just show me what pedals I need to push? I can do that."
Let's
Um,
just do what we've already been doing, and I'll publish them when I think they're ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And I'm not being facetious. I'm totally willing to go with whatever you want to do. And if you want to kind of kick it into high gear and just do the best you can, no problem. Well, let's start with chapter two, because I thought your last
Yeah.
paragraph was um, pretty close. Let me just see here. And you wanted me to look at the end of chapter two primarily to
Just the end of the paragraph.
just make
Yeah.
sure that it's segued nicely into,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think it's fine the way it is, and if you wanted, this is I'm just giving you how I would tend to probably clean it up a little bit, but you could also keep it the way it is. The only thing I would definitely change is the last sentence because it's a bit it came across a little redundant. Um, I would probably go with looking back towards the ghouls rather than turning back because that suggests she's physically like moving back in the direction of almost,
Hmm.
unless that's what you want. Looking back towards where the ghouls were coming from, that would be grammatically my suggestion would be just to make it tighter. Looking back towards the ghouls, she wondered what exactly Matthias had done to her. She shuddered in horror and then she threw up. Her emotions were a combination of exhilaration at what she had just done and disgust at what it might mean. My suggestion would be you're so good at sort of getting into the visceral descriptions. My suggestion might be instead of her emotions were a combination of these things, which sounds kind of analytical. You're analyzing her emotions. No, feel her emotions. Disgusted and exhilarated. She shuddered before throwing up.
Hmm.
suggestion. Turning around, she ran to the cemetery as fast as possible, hoping for God knew what, like that kind of a thing. Turning around, she ran out of the cemetery as fast as possible, hoping for, she didn't know what she hoped for, but right now she wanted out of Woodland Cemetery. That's definitely the vibe I'm already getting. So it struck me as you probably don't need to say it. Cemetery twice. And I think you can just shorten it up as an idea. Round to the cemetery as fast as possible, hoping for God knew what, or hoping for ... But other than that, I think the way the story ends with her running out and feeling like, I love your words, like exhilaration and disgust. These are great words, because I love the way you juxtapose those two, because she would feel both of those things.
Mhm.
She would feel like throwing up, which she does, but she would also feel this, it's the word that's out of place there that works so perfectly is exhilaration. She feels sick and she's throwing up, but somehow feels more alive and exhilarated than ever. That's perfect. And meanwhile has no idea what's next. I'm just running that way. It's kind of perfect, actually.
Great. That's what I was hoping.
And what I'll do is I'll send that to you, because I think that's great. I think that's fine the way it is. Does that help a little bit with that
Yeah,
one?
that definitely helps. I was just, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you just wanting to make sure that it
Yeah,
kind of went into chapter 3 effectively?
mostly I've noticed I tend to leave my chapters on cliffhangers. I kind of want to keep a theme with that because that always makes them want to go to the next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing
I
wrong with
love
that.
that. I loved what you're doing with chapter 2. What I would say, the first couple of pages are super strong, and it doesn't mean the rest are weak. It just means sort of a thing that seems to sort of potentially derail it slightly. But what you're doing here, where we're in Ramona's head, is so great. I loved all this. She couldn't remember ever feeling as good as she felt right now. Even her bandage. I highlighted all of the things that were like key things. Like I thought, oh, you completely nailed this, and you can see my blue note up at the top. You're keeping it simple. You're not showing a bunch of stuff happening. It's just her and how she's feeling as she gets up and moves around. You don't have a bunch of action. This is perfect. Like you've almost picture perfect in the first page, especially. Um, and this is simply a suggestion over here on the left. Like Ramona couldn't sit still. She looked, at the world around her, despite the heartbreak and sorry, where is she again?
The hospital.
She's in the hospital, right? Despite the heartbreak and near the
I think
she
I
couldn't
mentioned
remember
which hospital. I think somewhere. I don't know. So I mentioned. I know I brought it up somewhere. I don't know where.
Mm. I would definitely have us tell us we're in the hospital right at the top would be my suggestion, because it's sort of like I was searching for, oh, she's in a hospital bed. So that's because so she seems kind of like a disembodied person floating out in
Right.
space before you said a
Yeah.
hospital bed.
Originally in chapter 5, I had Julius went to go check out on Ramona in the hospital for like the ending. But what we're doing now is we're moving this one
Okay.
up as chapter 5, and then we're putting chapter 5 at the bottom of chapter 6 because that's when Julius has his discussion with Nathaniel. And
Mm-hmm.
well, at least that's what I'm thinking of. We might not do that.
I think these first few paragraphs is the cleanest, best writing I've ever seen. And it's funny because all you're doing is describing this woman getting up and how she feels and moving around a little bit. It's not that a bunch of stuff is happening. On the contrary, very little is happening, just enough is happening. But you're giving us this great slope, and not only is it good, well written in terms of describing how she's feeling, you do it progressively. You're not rushing. This is one of those times in your writing where I really loved reading because you weren't in a hurry to do a bunch of stuff. You're just having her walk around. And I love this. After rolling in around in bed for a few minutes, this is where you're hitting Stephen King, dude. I'm serious. She finally rose from her bed, placed her bare feet on the cold tiled floor. Love it. Rising to her feet, she walked out of her room and down the hall, walked around the hospital, pushed up with her knees as she tried to lift the mechanical bed. This is great. This was also, by the way, I thought something you did really well. If you hadn't had the graveyard scene, where she flung that ghoul into the tombstone and did all these like really kind of superhuman things, her just going over and saying she pushed up with her knees as she tried to lift the mechanical bed, and then she did it. That would seem odd. Like this just occurred to her that she must be able to lift a bed. But because you gave us that scene before, it almost seems like a confirmation. It's sort of like, I'm pretty sure I just like wrapped a ghoul around a tombstone like 3 chapters ago, 2 chapters ago. So can I lift this bed? Yep, I can do that too. Like it works. It makes complete sense. I love all of that.
Great. Yeah.
I was the only thing I was looking for again. This is a woman who was nearly raped and then experienced some of the most traumatic, kind of visceral gore any human being should ever have to look at. And superhuman or not, this is what always loses me in it. Not your story here. What always loses me in a story is when the moment somebody gets powers, they lose all of their humanity. Case in point, Scarlett Johansson and Lucy bugs the shit out of me because the moment this drug activates, she didn't just become superhuman and super smart. She loses all of her human emotion, and it's like, oh yeah, you lost me. Not even interested in the movie anymore. What I'm looking for, this girl is still
I understand
Ramona.
that, but there's actually a reason. As we go
Oh,
before,
okay.
her specific bloodline, since she has no mana in her system, her brain, like, she's about as close to dead as a living human being can get. She basically, her body was the equivalent of what you'd expect from someone in the retirement home. Her brain wasn't responding properly. Like, yeah, like she's basically like your grandmother in the retirement home who isn't reacting the way she's supposed to be to certain stimulus. So like, all this is happening. Sure,
Okay.
but she's numb to this. From her perspective, she's basically just been born.
But I would say that because here's the point. The audience that may all be true, but unfortunately, the audience who isn't aware of that exists in Hayden's head. The audience doesn't know that yet. What they see is that a girl who was so emotionally vulnerable and weak-willed that she fell for the first guy who showed her any comfort in the hospital when she was, like a year ago, and then was almost raped and almost killed and experienced all of this gore, and clearly had an emotional response to all of that, suddenly has no emotional response to anything. And that won't register in an audience. Oh, the reason must be because of her bloodline. That's not going to occur
Yeah,
to anybody
I
unless they're
I know
told that.
that
And
the moment
even
I
then,
figured it out the moment you said that. Yeah,
yeah.
so
And so
put it in
all
there.
they're going to see is they're going to register that as bad writing. Yeah. So, and it's not bad writing. It's one of those things where my suggestion would be, and even if, for example, you can say that, you can simply say, you can do something like she suddenly it occurred to her, oh my God, like you could literally do this. Suddenly it occurred to her, wait a minute, I was just nearly raped. I should be feeling upset about this. Why am I not feeling like it should be strange to her potentially because it's strange to us. Something in the way it's written to show, it doesn't mean you have to go into her emotions. You could literally have her simply, oh, where'd my emotions go? Like it's almost like that. Like, why am I not upset about this?
Mm-hmm.
I should be upset about this, right? Everything that just happened. But instead, I just feel like everything's changed. Like just simply get inside her head that way. That would be the only little thing, because otherwise this is gold. I love what you're doing here. One thing I wondered when it says like I love this was clever. In the end, she ate 4 sandwiches, 8 slices of pies, and it's and describes all these things. I like this, and I thought, am I interested in seeing her be really, really hungry, or would I be interested in seeing her eat one thing that people shouldn't eat? Like, what's more interesting, to see someone like her simply eat a lot of food? Because I almost buy that, yeah, if somebody was hungry enough, well, probably they're not that much food. I've seen my son get pretty close to that much food when he was hungry enough. I might just
Seriously,
think, oh man, she's really, really
I
hungry.
can't even eat
Mm-hmm.
like these are like full like Subway sub sandwiches, 8 slices of pie, a salad, 7 bowls of jello. Like the whole point is like her
It's a
metabolism is
lot. There's no
taking.
question.
Yeah, well, part of her condition is that she now needs to eat that much just to stay functional.
Okay, then I would comment on that too. Like,
Well, like how am I
again,
supposed to?
you're all. It feels
How am I supposed to comment on that like
just
right
like that.
now?
Have her. What you do with things like that is like, right. My suggestion would be, um, again, for somebody in her condition, and totally do what you want with this. It might be more interesting to see her. She's totally hungry. Why am I staring at why am I staring at the IV? Somebody's giving, I don't do this, but somebody's giving blood over in the next room. And as she's walking to the kitchen to get food, she sees that and she's more hungry for that than she is for the food. But
She's
what's
not a
that about?
vampire, remember?
Whether it's something that meant, No, but I mean, I'm not suggesting kind of the vampire thing, but if there's something unique that she might be hungry for, might be more interesting than just a lot of food. But this works. If the point that you're making here is that she's not merely hungry, but her metabolism is shifted because of that. Again, the audience doesn't know that. All they're seeing is a girl who looks hungry, exceptionally
A
hungry
girl
for
who's
sure.
now hyper
Unusually.
energetic, tons of energy, and now has to eat like a cow's worth of food to stay
Hmm.
to even be register as full. I basically did everything except come out and straight up say her metabolism has accelerated.
Yeah, I'm suggesting you say that because where
Yep.
does it say that her energy is super high and stuff?
She's running around the hallways, bandaged up.
She's walking around the hall. Where does it say she's running?
Does it say running or walking?
It says she's like she just looks like a girl who's gotten up out of bed and walking around. It doesn't. I don't see this. Again, this is another example of what's
I need to
happening in
push
your
the more
mind, but it's not
hyper-energetic
ending up on
level.
the page.
Need to push the
Yeah, Eh,
hyper active level.
but yeah, but again, this all of this is stuff she's never experienced before. So usually when, one of the things that whether it's in a film or a book that will happen when a sudden a person has this expansion of awareness, perceptions, powers, energy, they at least are surprised by it because otherwise it just looks like, you could do all of this, she ate all this stuff and she could eat all of that all over again. Like what's happening to me? Why am I like all you need to do is get inside her head a little bit because if you're what you don't want to do is rely on or hope that the audience, well, if I show all of this, well, all you've really shown, if I was to just take it from bare minimum, is that she feels better than she's ever felt. Her shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. She's walking around the hospital. She did lift up a bed. Yep, that's unusual. I want to see her response to that. I want to like at each one of these stages, all I would do is consider adding in, yeah, she feels this way. What does that mean? Because it's the aggregate of all of those things. Never feeling so good, healing quicker than usual, being able to lift up a bed, eating all of this food. Um, what does all of this mean? What is it like? She's thinking to herself, wait a minute, the fuck just happened to me? Like, and plus I wrapped together, like, I want to, basically what I'm looking for is a genuine emotional response from somebody who would actually have gone through this, unless you're trying to avoid that altogether, in which case it's going to be more of a it's going to be more of a two-dimensional story. It's going to be people doing crazy things but not having normal human reactions to any of it, which eventually is going to, for I think most people reading it, they're going to go, this is cool and everything, but I don't buy that these are real people. It really becomes evident, Hayden, we get to this part. Like he comes into the room, he sees this girl. Oh, Siri, hilarious. Well, it's good to see you still have your appetite, he says. I was wondering if we could talk about your attacker. And I kept waiting, and maybe this isn't as necessary for first. If I'm Julius, he's like, hey, well, it's good to see you. It's good to see you're hungry. I wonder if we could talk about your attacker. I almost wanted to see him check in on her a little bit, or her sort of, um, you know, uh, as you see from the note, let them talk a bit first if you want to do that. I want to hear her ask her own questions first. Like if I'm her and he comes in and he says, hey, it's good to see you have your appetite. Can we talk about your attacker? Sure. What do you want to know? If I'm Ramona and she's a real person at all, I'd be like, wait a minute, dude, before you start asking me a bunch of questions. Now I know she does that later. I get it, but she asks it after he apparently asks a bunch of questions. What do you do for a living? Why did he hang out? Ramona found herself increasingly frustrated as she discovered she didn't know any of the answers to his questions. I love that, by the way, the idea that she was dating a guy that really, the more she thinks about it, she barely knew this guy. That is gold. I love that. Um, and so she somehow has the presence of mind and the energy to not ask herself any questions about why she has this power. But she's not curious at all until later about, like, tell me what I need. It felt like maybe she wanted to see her have agency. A woman who was gullible for this dude, nearly got raped, attacked by monsters. I'm going to guess that 10 women out of 10 in the city, and then suddenly has superpowers and feels better than she's ever felt. if I'm her and Julius comes in and says, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" If I'm her, I'm like, "How about I ask you a few fucking questions, guy? Thank you for saving my life. Really appreciate it." But no, I'm not answering any questions. She seems incredibly docile and submissive still, like she was to Matthias when this dude starts asking questions. Maybe just a thought that maybe she might show a little feistiness. But then when we get to this part, this is the big part. Um, what was Matthias? He wasn't human. He was a vampire. Yeah. So tell me what I need to. So tell me what I need to know. I think that is that a period. So tell me what I need to know. Is that supposed to be a period or a question mark?
Question mark.
So tell me what I need to know. So she's asking a question. A vampire. Yep. So
yeah, I guess that was wrong. Shit.
oh, okay. Yeah, I just wasn't 100% sure. Need to know. Nothing. So nothing. You're going to be mind wiped as soon as the entire incident is put to bed. What if I want to know anyways? And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Somebody said to me, hey, I have some questions. Oh, yeah, no, we don't need to answer those. We're going to wipe your mind in a couple of minutes anyway. And she's like, oh, but what if I want to know anyway? No, no, no. If somebody said that to anybody, they wouldn't say, but what if I want to know? They would say, you're going to do what? Um, Remember how I just wrapped a creature around a tombstone? That's what I'm doing to you. If you ever say you're going to wipe my mind again, what are you talking about? But instead, she's like, but what if I want to know? That didn't strike me as a particularly human response. Okay. My suggestion would be, first of all, what? Julius is going to wipe her mind? So this was another one of those situations where I'm like, whoa, 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 back up. What is this world? What do you mean wipe the mind? What are the rules of this world? What's going on here? Still looking for that. And I know you get into it. But she seems really okay with her mind being wiped. Well, can I save a couple of souvenirs before you wipe my mind? No, don't touch me, man, or I'll wrap you around a tombstone. You're not getting anywhere near my mind. What does that mean, by the way? So that's what I'm looking for is I want it to sound like a real conversation between two people, because what I can tell you're doing, and I love that you're doing, is probably I told you last week or the week before. Can you give us a little bit more of the story in the world and what's going on? Okay, so what we end up having,
the mind wipe thing, maybe just tell her you live your life now.
Yeah, because then it's followed by a massive info dump that also doesn't sound like a real conversation between two people. I like where you're going, and it's a good start, but this whole section is full of obviously some useful information, but it's full of details without giving me any sense of what the world is like. So it's sort of like saying, hey, can you describe what it's like to go to a library? And somebody's saying, yes, you can go to this place and open a drawer and there's stuff in there that will tell you where everything is. And I'm like, what? No, back up. What the fuck is a library? Oh, it's a place where they have books that you can go read them. Okay, you've given me the context. Now tell me about that drawer. It's cart before the horse stuff. So what it feels like we're doing is we're getting the details before we're getting sort of a sense of the world. Mm-hmm. Are you still there? Can you hear me okay?
You're breaking up a little, but I can still hear you. I can still see your.
I think we're having a poor connection. Can you hear me okay, Hayden?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Main reason
but you can hear me? Oh, there you are. Perfect.
Stole a couple of those paragraphs from an award-winning author. So.
Love it. So first of all, I would think at this point in the story, just from having sort of been in situations sort of like this, the information is flowing just a little too easily for a girl who's still super or not, probably still dealing with some significant PTSD. Mm-hmm. And Julius doesn't seem to be interested for a guy who seemed to care so much about her at the graveyard. He seems to not really have any bedside manners at all, ironically being nearly bedside. He's sort of doing an info. So my first thought was not to rip it apart, but plus she is so in the know. I mean, this was a girl who didn't know the difference between a good guy and a bad guy and was the definition of gullibility. And now she's saying things like, do's and don'ts. Yeah, don't make a deal with anything magical, demon, fae, or angel. It never ends well. Vampires and werewolves can turn you if you get bitten. It's generally an 80% chance you'll turn, but it's not a guarantee you'll contract the disease. And like, who is this woman? There's no way this is the same woman who's in the graveyard. She sounds like Wikipedia to begin with.
Well, that's
And then
Julius
but
talking.
she doesn't sound like somebody who's been through anything she's been through.
That's Julius
Oh, but
talking.
you've got Ramona parroted back. It says do's and don'ts, Ramona parroted back. It's this section in here.
Oh, okay.
You've got it coming out of
Yeah,
Ramona.
I forgot to hit a space after or yeah. I forgot to hit enter before yeah.
Okay, that makes way more sense. Okay, thank God. You clean. Okay, I can vamp. Okay, that makes totally way more sense. It looked like Ramona is like, what? Who is this woman? That makes way more sense. So that takes care of that question in terms of that part, in terms of Ramona. But what I would say is the biggest part of this chapter that I felt is probably worth spending some time on is deciding what information does the audience need. You can see my note here at the bottom of page 3. How do you reveal all this information? First of all, back, but they need to have all of the different magical creatures listed, or do they need big pictures? It's sort of like saying to Luke Skywalker for the first time, okay, dude, we need to blow up the Death Star. Okay, how do I do that? Okay, when you see this small tiny little space, press button A. And he's like, what? What? Back up. Am I in an X-wing? Am I in a plane? What am I doing? Oh yeah, you should just know that. No, no, no. When you say look for portal and press button B, I have no fucking idea what you're talking. So I would start by saying, give me the big picture. Humans outnumber Paris, something like the first information she gets is from him is humans outnumber Para something like 3-1 in general. I don't know what that means. Earth has almost no magic. That makes the planet relatively safe. It sort of feels like it's almost there, but I feel like tell me a story like I'm 5, because she is, in terms of her understanding of things. How would you explain this world to a 5-year-old who knows literally nothing about it?
It's not really all that different. It
And
just has magic and a bunch of concerns and stuff. Okay, yeah. There's a bunch of really. How do I
it's a challenge. I get it. Like anybody who's writing fantasy, myself included, um, the the biggest challenge when we're doing this is we're so far down the road in understanding our world. Like we have such a good grasp, or at least a better grasp than the average person is. It's sort of like, how would you explain computer coding to somebody who's turning on a computer for the first time? How would you explain how to play your favorite video game, not only to somebody who's never played that video game, but never played a video game? It's teaching your grandmother, how to code. And so that's your audience, even if they're nerds like you and me who
Oh, holy
love this
shit!
shit, and they may know fantasy, but they don't know your world. What's that?
I just
Can you hear me okay?
I just cooked my books slightly, and I doubled my ranking on Royal Road. Yeah,
Oh, good for you.
yeah, yeah. I jumped from
So what does that mean?
I jumped from rank like 30,000 to rank 19,000.
Oh, wow. Nearly doubled it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
good for you.
I don't expect that to
Congratulations.
last long.
That's
In
super
fact, that
cool.
might actually screw me over in the long run.
Oh, really? How
Well, I
come?
expect a 4-star book now, and it's like 3 chapters. So, like one guy gave me
Oh,
a three and a
fair.
half, and I just gave myself a 5-star. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
And
maybe.
now you're in George R. R. Martin territory, because now you have to produce quickly, probably, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna reduce that to 4. Yeah, I'm not gonna put that much pressure. I want. Okay, yeah, that's better. There, that's only 10,000 more than where I was previously.
Gotcha. Hang on just one sec. So what I'll do is I'll send this to you because it's got sort of the main notes that you can see there. I'm just going to see LA. Where are you? Main notes at the end of 2, and as far as I've gotten in 6, but I'd say that that's the biggest thing. The intro with Ramona, brilliant in chapter 6. I love sort of watching her get out of bed and sort of deal with her
The main things I
environment.
wanted to go over in this chapter was her introduction to the paranormal. What were your recommendations? What would you suggest? That kind of
Hmm.
thing.
I would suggest mainly back up and how would you explain your, there's two questions. How would you explain your world to a absolute noob, 100% knows nothing about your world, and which begs the question, what does the audience need to know? And assume that you're going to back up, I sense that you and I are the same person. If you had to teach somebody how to tie their shoes and they didn't even know what a lace was,
Mm-hmm.
that would probably frustrate you. The first response would be, Jesus, get anybody else to show them how to. I don't have the patience for somebody who doesn't even know what a lace is. But you have to have that patience in a story like this. And I think that's one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that you're sort of bumping up against. I know that about you for years now. Your big mind sometimes struggles with the reality that lesser minds need to have their hand held through a story, and we're needing that big time. So because Ramona is us. This is a girl who didn't know any of this stuff existed 12 hours ago. So to hear stuff like, paras and what's a para? Like that's how like she is. Like she doesn't know anything.
Like I said,
But it's
I ripped that off of someone else's book.
mhm. So if I imagine that you're him having to, in a situation like this, talk to somebody with absolutely no background in it whatsoever. He's not talking to a fellow BPA agent here. He's talking to somebody who doesn't know a thing about a thing. And so that's going to be hard. There's no way around the fact that's going to be hard, but it's at some point in the story, it's absolutely critical. And this is your golden opportunity. You will never get a better opportunity to sell people. Like, people have read your chapters so far because they're well written, and they've thought, oh, wicked prologue, oh, that cemetery seems amazing. That so far you've given them really, really good stuff that makes sense. It's dramatically compelling. There's good character stuff in there. What you don't want to do is blow it with a chapter that says, okay, finally, okay, I'm a little lost too, like Ramona, so I can't wait to hear the explanation. And to get an explanation that doesn't clearly explain what is going on in this world. Who are these people? Who is this guy? And who are the BPA? Like, why did what just happened to me happen to me? Because you're having it for Ramona, you're not merely having to explain to the audience what's going on in the world. You're also sort of having to convince us that Ramona is a real person, that powers or not, no matter how she's changing, she's still mentally and emotionally on some level connected to the person that she was in the graveyard, who was just assaulted and traumatized, quite quadruplicate compared to the average person. And we need to believe that she's a real person responding to that, and that these people are there for her while you're giving us the backstory. So you've got a juggling act here, but if you can pull it off, that's the stuff where people are going to go, okay, it wasn't just a couple of good chapters that he wrote, it's the whole story works. That's kind of what I want to help you get to.
Okay. Yeah, I mostly want to get through the first 10 chapters as quickly as possible because that's the whole Matthias thing, and then we
Mm-hmm.
can get into the real meat of the story with the locusts in Alaska and all that. So, do we have enough time for you to do a quick review of chapter 4 before I send it out, or I don't think we do.
You mean tonight,
Yeah,
or
probably
you
not.
mean next week? Not tonight. No, definitely not. But I definitely can, for next week, unless you want to distribute it sooner than that. In which case, I would just go for it. Let the chips fall where they fall.
I'm pretty like I took what you said with chapter 4, and I've made Julius a bit more sympathetic to Watkins, a lot more insulting to the vampire. There are some parts I'm still. I think I might wait a week. I'm not 100% sure. If I don't send it off, we'll do it next week.
Okay, that sounds good. Let me know for sure. If you can, no later than, say, when are we meeting next week, by the way? Do we want to meet?
Mondays still?
Can we meet Monday again? Perfect. 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get it to me by Sunday if you can, latest.
Okay. Yeah.
You're usually really good at getting stuff
I think I'm gonna start.
on time or earlier, so.
I'm gonna start releasing slightly irregularly on Tuesdays, so I have time to go over stuff and yeah. honestly,
Okay,
I give us
sounds
a
good.
50-50 chance of producing this before Monday, because like I said, most of it's good. It's mostly just the Matthias. Like Matthias is kind of like a dumbass, and is a bit of a dumbass in this. Like, I have him saying some really cringy lines, like "I am the knight" and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, send me what you can before next week. And I think any way you slice it, you're now in a race. And so we won't have the luxury of fine tuning it to be good. I want you to know, though, that I have faith in you. And in the future, if you do want to work on a project and get it, get it really well baked before you submit it for public. This is great. I love that you're doing this.
I'm willing to take time with the BPA. It's
Hmm.
not like super. I've got another story I'm cooking, and that one is not like I'm just not going to touch that one like me and you, where I'm just going to finish the chapter, go once over, and it's like good enough. Out it goes. Doesn't matter if it's good or not. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, frankly, I think for this story to be, I mean, there's a reason we took as many weeks as we did with those previous chapters, and I'll do whatever you want, in terms of coaching. But I would be disingenuous to you and to me if I said anything other than it's probably going to take as long as those previous chapters have taken to get them to where they were. Those chapters got
Well,
to
no,
where they
chapter
are.
2 took for frickin' ever. Kept changing
Hmm.
that stupid thing. I really hate the graveyard scene now. That was a throwaway scene I made all the way back in the beginning, and somehow it turned into this.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I like it personally, but I mean, it's your story. But my point is that if it's going to get to where you want it to be, if it's a choice between quick or good,
I'll take
I'll
that.
help you with either one of those.
With
If
this one, it'll be good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, send me what you got by Sunday, and we'll hit it.
Sure. Oh yeah, I even got a front page in case you're interested in taking a look at some point. Got it. I got a picture for it.
Oh, send that to me too. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Well, I think I sent you the
Very
link
cool.
to
Okay, I
the
got to
whole
answer
web
this call
page.
from my son.
Sure. See you later.
Oh, cool. Okay, take care,
Bye
Hayden.
bye.
Bye bye.